Everyone, Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. I'm talking today to David Schatzkammer, and we're going to talk about kids and therapy, and maybe adults. So, David, tell us a little bit about what you do and where you're at.
Sure. I'm a play therapist, licensed mental health counselor to be exact, and a registered play therapist supervisor. Basically, that means I have a lot of training in play therapy. I work with kids ages 3 to about 8. That's my sweet spot. That's what I know, and I talk the language of play. So, oftentimes parents come in like, I don't know what my kid's thinking or what he's doing or what's doing what, because they're, parents on a logic, we're adults, we talk on a one way, and then kids talk to us on a different way. We're not like, no one's listening to each other in a way, It's like we're talking two different languages, So I'm like the interpreter.
Mm-hmm.
I interpret play for parents.
Yeah, we're adults, so we have to call it gamification, right?
Yeah.
In the meantime, kids just do it. They're
Yeah.
just doing it, and they're doing it because they're investigating,
They're
and
curious.
it's a game for them. It's really a game for us too. Life really is a game, Game of Thrones. But it's really like their game has no rules until they learn them. So a lot of people might think there's a huge difference between therapy for adults and children, but it's probably more along the lines of not necessarily process, but the how you communicate to kids. What's the difference between talking with a kid, talking with an adult, and talking them through their problems?
Well, with adults, we could have a conversation. You could tell me how you feel. You could process things more cognitively. With adults, even teenagers can talk if they want to. Kids are much more expressive and much more available in the context of play. Like, play is their language in a way, That's how they communicate, Toys and play is how they communicate.
It's like that puppet, you give a kid
Yeah.
a puppet and you start talking and they'll start saying how they feel.
Yeah, because they're more expressive that way. They're more comfortable. They're more safe. It's just more natural for kids to play than, unfortunately, adults.
I guess it's because they're really at the level where everything is a simile or a metaphor. Everything.
Yeah, but they project those kind of metaphors and things through play, through playing
Exactly.
house, through playing puppets, through playing with menchies, through playing kitchen. Like, there's things that come up through that play that they could feel more comfortable just letting letting loose. Like, for adults, we're very much like, we're hesitant to tell anybody anything. We don't want them to be offended, whatever. Kids just like, well, they'll say it through play and they'll tell you exactly what's going on, Like,
We've learned the rules. We've learned the rules. So kids haven't learned the rules. Sometimes they'll just say it or act it out because nobody's told them, you don't do that.
Right.
Or maybe somebody has told them and that's why they're acting out.
Yeah.
So when you're first faced with a kid and they come to you, how do you begin that game playing, that give and take? Meet a kid, Johnny sits down. What do you do with Johnny?
Usually the kid walks into the playroom and I'll say, Johnny, this is the playroom, and you can play with toys any way you like. And he just goes or doesn't go or he's not sure. And I don't really, my way of doing it, I'm not really like trying to force anything. I'm following his lead. So he goes right, I go right. He goes left, he goes left. He says something, I'll reflect back something else. He's feeling something, I'll reflect those feelings back. So he knows that, okay, I'm listening, I get you. And if I'm wrong, you'll let me know I'm off,
Mm-hmm.
It's more of like the kids leading the show in a way. And I'm following along, providing that environment where he could feel safe and comfortable to express and work on things and deal with things that come up in the context of a relationship and whatever he's going through.
Kids are, kids need to feel comfortable. they need to feel love, all those concepts of comfort.
Right.
And if they don't, they'll just clam up. Right. So they used to, I remember drawing. That was something we did in kindergarten and preschool. And it does reflect a lot of what a kid is thinking, but that doesn't, that there were other things, play acting, perhaps like, with the puppets or something like that,
Mhm.
or even picking up a stuffed animal.
Yeah.
And I do it. I do it with my dogs now. I put words in their mouths. I'm playing, right? I'm
Yeah.
playing with them. So you've got this, Johnny's in the room, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. You're letting Johnny lead. How you've got parents to deal with. I mean, this is not an adult that is giving you permission to go into his psyche. This is a child that has no idea really what's going on, what the rules of the game is. So it's complicated. It's difficult. Not only do you have to get the comfortability, the comfort of the child, but it's also the parents. So how does that work?
The comfort of the kid is much more easier than the kid than the parents for me. Obviously, parents have certain agendas, but I usually tell them ahead of time. Like when I first meet them, I really give them the context of how I work, what it looks like, what it feels like. I bring them into the room. I show them examples. Like if this is what you want, this is what you're looking for to help. This is what I do. And sometimes they look for something else, and I refer them out. Like I have to know. Like I'm letting you know everything that's going to happen, what's going to look like, what's going to feel like. And sometimes I get them involved in the play also. So they come into the room and I train them in play therapy techniques so they could use with their own kid. So
Yeah, I would say that's somewhat important because in many cases parents are not interacting with their kids. They're saying, "I'm busy. Here's the phone," and the kids are playing, or a Game Boy or whatever. Game
mhm,
Boys. I'm dating myself, but that is somewhat of a problem today, or even at any time when you've got a family that's very busy. Maybe there's lots of kids in the family, and there's a lot going on, and you're leaving the kid to discover on their own. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. It really depends on the kid. When we were growing up, perhaps here's your bicycle, go for a ride, and you'd come back at 5 o'clock at night. And you'd have dinner and you'd have a
yeah.
conversation. You don't do that these days anymore. So are kids playing more, less?
They have a harder time playing. It takes them a little bit more time to like, okay, like what do I do with a puppet? Which is a little bit sad in some way, but I allow them that space and time to like figure it out. Like we're not going anywhere. We got 45 minutes. So we're stuck here together. You could do nothing or you could play. I'm saying, you know, um, and usually they would, it forces them to be tap into that normal development. What kids do is play. If they had something in front of them that was occupying their space, then they're not going to tap into that because they're just preoccupied. But if they have nothing else to do besides stay in the room and there's lots of toys, time will allow them to like tap into their natural play ability.
Mhm.
But it does take kids a little bit longer, or they feel bored because they don't know what to do, which is a bit sad when a 6-year-old comes into a playroom and he's bored. I'm okay with that. You could be bored. I'm saying, when a kid, if a kid would do that, does it like I'm bored. I don't want to be here anymore. I said, Johnny, it's really hard for you to be bored right now. And you just don't know what to do. We got another 35 minutes, and you could decide what you want to do and how you want to do it.
Yeah, I remember saying as a kid
Like
in
I
the summer.
respected, I respect their ability, their being. Okay, you could be bored. It's okay. Like not sure what to do. yeah, it's new. It's not normal. Like you're new, I'm new. We don't know each other. It's uncomfortable. I tell them, I know it's a little bit uncomfortable. You're not sure what to do, but you can decide. It's your choice.
Right.
And that alone gives them ability to like, okay, now I could actually be comfortable. I could like you understand. Like we're on the same page. I could do nothing. I could say nothing. I could just do. I could just be. Obviously, there's limits that come in. I'll set the limit when that happens. But for the most part, kids can be a kid who they
Yeah.
naturally are.
There's, I mean, games, different games, or toys um, help kids with creativity. So it puts them in that land of make believe.
The toys that are allowed to facilitate that creativity.
Right.
So a board game or structure doesn't allow that. Puppets allow that. Kitchen allows it. House allows it. Menchie's allowed it. Sand allows it.
Right.
You know,
Right. That's if you give a kid a a game, a digital game, um, there's life building or whatever. You give them those types of games where they're building characters on the go, but it's very structured and it's very adult. Very adult. They may lose that if they understand how to play that game at a young age, then they're losing that free for all of make believe. Literally dropping your bicycle and running off into the grass, running over to running in, walking into a playground and just wow. I'll go this, I'll do this, I'll do that, and you're just going crazy
and within
as
the
opposed
concept,
to sitting with a game.
they're not now with when the concepts of play, they're learning how to socialize, they're learning how to problem solve, figure things out, be uncomfortable, express themselves, work things out. It's so much valuable that kids could play that sometimes they don't have opportunity for that.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I'm not
so
saying there's no place for it, but to overdo it is a bit much.
right, right.
You
Um,
wanna you wanna have a structure in your life, in your family, whatever. Like I'm not against it. Obviously, I'm not going to advocate. But if you want to do, let's say, some parents do like a half an hour a day. Okay, so half an hour a day, whatever. I'm saying not like a half an hour. I want 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes. Like the parents like giving. It's like you gotta have structure. It's healthy for kids to have. He knows. Okay, this is what it is.
Parents need to well, most parents do, but parents need to provide a whole bunch of different stimulus for kids to pretend in. So you want to read a book together, let's read a book together. You want to just run around, you want to run around. Here's coloring, let's color. So a whole bunch. And these things don't need to be very expensive. They
You can get a cardboard box from a store.
exactly. Exactly.
you know.
Glue. I mean, I remember glue and popsicle sticks.
Yeah. When I was when my kids were younger, I had cardboard boxes from the supermarket, and they. I remember myself. I was 13 years old or 14, and I was still making like houses out of cardboard boxes. Like refrigerator boxes.
Yeah, yeah. But it's it's filling time. It's also the choice. I mean, as I mentioned, it's like a metaphor. What is this kid trying to do? What is this kid telling me? He keeps on building houses out of refrigerator boxes. What is this kid telling me? That he's got a pretty good imagination and that he wants to create stuff. So I'd say when you're let's say you get to a point where you can identify some things through play, how are you pulling those threads together and trying to there's a process there. It's just not let's color and every week you and Johnny color together and you're like to the parents, yeah, he colored good, here's a few pictures, put them up on your refrigerator. What are you doing with the kid, and how are you working with the parents to let them know, here are some things that I see.
So usually, a few things. One, usually kids when they're in play or play therapy, you want to call it, there are certain themes that come up, certain repetitious type of work that they do, whether it's and those themes could be control, not control, anxiety, not anxiety, things that they bring up that they feel bad. Let's say where they're playing with Menchies and talking about family, and one person's left out, and he's the left out person. Maybe get him the parents, okay, maybe spend more time with him, like schedule a time a week to go out to dinner with him, like so I could take that idea and then transfer it to the parents. Like, this is what I'm noticing in terms of his play and how to help you to recognize that he needs some more time alone or more with you.
Yeah,
I had once a kid, I think he was like 9, and he was drawing, and then he started going into his father was in jail and how he missed him, and like a whole big scenario that he drew out in terms of coloring on paper that it's really hard for him.
hmm and sometimes kids will make that up,
Sometimes,
right? And that's even another scenario in itself.
right? But mostly kids are very authentic and very real.
hmm
Like if they feel like comfortable, they'll tell you what they want to tell. Especially younger kids. Teenagers is another story.
Right.
I'm not going there. But what I work with, mostly kids are. If you if you have a good relationship, they'll tell you exactly what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't. Um, they haven't learned to lie yet.
Mhm.
And if they're comfortable, they're going to tell you.
Right.
And that's really the point. The point is that they probably would tell their parents too,
But
if the
no,
parents would
but the
listen.
parents they would tell the parents, but in a way that the parents don't really understand. Like they're like this way, that
Well,
way.
they're involved. They're involved.
Right. Right.
So that the last thing the parent wants to know is, am I doing this wrong? I mean, some parents may be willing to hear that. I'm not saying all the
Right.
parents, but
Right.
the last thing a parent wants to be told is, the kid looking at mom and saying, I don't like, I don't like anything that we do together. I don't, you don't make me feel comfortable. I'm not good here.
Right.
A parent doesn't want to hear that. And it may
Right.
be that simple.
Right. But sometimes kids won't say that. They'll
Right,
react. They'll react in a way, like
right.
they'll stay in their room, or they won't go outside, or they don't want to leave. And the parent thinks it's something else when the kid's like telling you something else, and you're not. It's hard to really know because you don't. If you're not speaking the same language, you're not understanding your kid, and that's what parents want to know. Like, okay, what's going on? How can I help? Because generally, parents want to do things for their kids. They want to help. They want to
Of course.
it's a nice thing. Just got to figure out how to talk and be on the same wavelength.
Yeah. And many times, it's not something that happens at home. It's something that's happening around them. And they're sometimes unable to fully comprehend what's happening around them. A bully, for example, right? When I was a kid, I had a I had a friend, and she had a friend, and that friend was a bully.
Mhm.
I never came home to my parents and told them that I was getting bullied around. I don't think that they ever knew that it happened, but it was happening, right?
Right.
So, and it's not, I'll say this for whatever it's worth. You're going to be bullied throughout your entire life. You better get used to it. People are going to push you around. It's just how you maneuver that, right? So it never occurred to me, other than I began to trust people less and less. That was the response to that. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, you can't trust everyone, because some people say stuff and mean it, and some people say stuff and don't.
Right.
So, it was a learning lesson for me. But in some cases, a kid can be very sensitive. And, somebody at school can say, your daddy's stupid. And now the kid doesn't want to talk to daddy. And these things happen.
Yeah.
These things happen. So, so what are, let me see. Let me have had so many questions here. Um, so you've got like a 3-year-old, and you've got an 8-year-old, and there's a world of stuff between the two. There's a world of stuff going on. I mean, the 3-year-old barely speaks, or maybe doesn't speak at all. And the 8-year-old doesn't shut up. Right.
Yeah, it could be vice versa too.
Yeah, exactly, or vice versa. Truly. You've got a whole bunch of different things going on. So what are some typical, without breaking confidentiality, what are some typical things that are going on in some of these kids' lives that represent our times here, right?
8-year-old will have a hard time playing,
Mm-hmm.
hard time connecting, not sure what to do, bored, understimulated, um, doubt, um, not sure, confused, probably a bit of anxiety. You know, in terms of more recently, kids come in for the anxiety challenges. 3-year-old is more like know what knowing what buttons to press in the parents, and the parents don't know how to deal with it, or what's regular, what's normal. Like like I remember a parent called me. Parent called me like, okay, my kid's out of control. I can't deal with him. Um, he doesn't stop annoying. He's like, I said, how old is he? 2.5. Okay, this is terrible twos. This is like normal. He's not crazy. Just give it a few, like, do what you're doing well, because she was trying to like work with him. Okay, keep doing that, and call me back in 6 months and see if this is still an issue. She never called me back, and some parents don't call me, think, okay, they call me back, like things are working out. Okay, we just letting you know, or wait, we'll see what happens. So some things are normal, some things are not.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand where the kids developmentally appropriate. What's called normal, what's called not. If a kid's bedwetting and he's 8, that's something's not right. Like you have to check it out medically, mentally. But the kid's 3 and he's a boy for sure, and he's bedwetting. Okay, it's normal. We can work on it, but like don't push it, because then he's gonna get withdrawal. He's gonna having problems, anxiety. He's gonna be controlling. You're gonna cause more damage than not if you're gonna push. Parents push bedwetting, like training or whatever. You see like a backwards effect.
Mm-hmm.
For the kid's 8 in bedwetting, there's something has to be discussed. Like it's not developmentally normal.
Right.
So a lot of times parents come in like, is this normal? Is my kid doing this? Does it make sense? Like, is this a phase? Is this something like he's going through, type of thing? Like sometimes parents call me and the kid, let's say a trauma happened, and let's say I get called recently. Let's say one of the parents passed away, so they call me like the day after. Okay, my kid needs to come to therapy. One of his parents passed away. I said, you got to give the kid a little time to like process, because you might not see anything till like 6 months later or 3 months later. So like right now, just like figure things out, in terms of your family, keep things regular in terms of, how things are operating, and see how he is, see how his behavior, see how he's sleeping, see how he's eating, see how he's adjusting. Because some kids are resilient and will be able to process things, but some things are not. Sometimes it'll come out a little bit later, in a half a year to 3 months, and then you could work on it. So don't call it like the day after. It's like, just give your kid a little bit more time to breathe. Like
Death is one of the hardest things. I mean,
yeah,
that sounds like, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, no one would ever say, "Oh no, I could deal with death." I think my next door neighbor, I think she was 5 years old, and her father passed away. So I said, "What are you going to do?" And she's like, "I haven't told her." And I thought, "What?" And I'm thinking, a 5-year-old is barely able to understand death. They can understand daddy's not here right now. Daddy went away. I mean, you're not lying. At some point, and I understood, and she said, I'm not going to tell her until she's ready. I'm going to, tell her that daddy went away. You know how daddy goes to work? Daddy went to work. Well, is he coming back soon? Maybe next week. Very odd type of a situation, until the child says, "Come on, when's daddy coming home?" Okay, now the child's ready, and what was odd with this situation was that she said, her daughter came back and said, I talked to Daddy last night and he said it was okay that where he is and that he's not going to come back. So she's already beginning to process in her make-believe that either she has heard something or somebody else said something. Now, she was in a house with her grandmother, so there were other people. But death is one of the hardest things to deal with.
Well, you see the beauty in that. The kid tapped into her natural resources to cope in a very healthy way.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing.
That really is the point. I was thinking,
Right. So we have to allow kids to do that, to allow that, to tap into that. That's my belief. Like when I come into a therapy room, I'm not forcing anything. I'm not doing anything. I'm allowing them to really tap into themselves, to figure things out, to work things out. I'm there to provide that environment, so to speak, that framework, that relationship where you could access fully that ability that you have, that God gave each one of us,
Yeah. And I mean, it's elemental problem solving.
Yeah, but if you allow, but you want to tie it into the first question, adults. If as a kid you were able to do that, then when you're an adult, you could problem solve, figure things out without getting anxiety and providing stress or whatnot. So really, I remember I was in my office and they had a fancy thermometer on it, sophisticated technology, you want to call it, and I didn't know it, but I was freezing. I wanted the heat to go on. I don't know how this thing works. So I played with it. I turned it, I pressed around, I pushed in it, I was playing with it. And eventually, in a few minutes, I figured out how to work it. I didn't get stressed about it, I didn't get nervous about it, I was just playing with it. Because the playing part, able to problem solve things, you figure things out,
Well, that is the purpose of youth. I mean, that is what children are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they stay with human children stay with their parents for so long, as opposed to, us kicking them out of the house when they're 7 years old, saying, okay, go get a job, go get an apartment, go see you later. They're still developing all of those. We're very complex. So it's emotions, dexterity, and then the five senses, hearing, seeing. I mean, all of these things are going back into our brains and creating our personalities. Whether you believe that, it's nature or nurture or some combination of the two, the point is these things are happening to us, and it takes a long time for until old age. I think it takes a long time for us to pull all the threads together. And for the healthiest people, they're still doing it. And for I guess for those that need some help, is that they think they've hit a barrier where they can't do that anymore. So they're not learning about their environment and making decisions. They're stuck. They're stuck in a problem, in a situation, in a job, in a relationship, in a place that they just don't want to be. Yeah. And if they haven't had these experiences as kids, I mean, imagine a helicopter mom and dad who don't let this kid feel any hurt at all. Like, God forbid they bleed. That's not good. And, we see that a lot with kids. Yeah. Like, don't cry in public. Cry, go ahead, cry.
Yeah.
Something I do remember, my sister would have temper tantrums. And my mother would walk away from them. Just in the store, walk away. I was younger. And I only remember one temper tantrum. And she literally, I mean, my sister was a lot older than I was. So this memory may be something I'm making up. But I do remember one time where my mother just said, "Oh, maybe I saw it." I think I did. It just came to me. My father used to take, um, motion pictures with the old motion picture camera, not the video camera, the motion picture camera. And in this particular moment in time, my sister decided to have a temper tantrum, and he just kept filming.
Mhm.
And he didn't stop. He just kept filming.
Yeah.
And, she, when we would watch it when we were older, she would be embarrassed. But the point is, I mean, I don't think temper tantrums are particularly unusual. You see them all the time in every store.
Yeah.
I want that. Put that back. No, I want that. Put that back. And you've got to take your kids shopping. A mother is not going to have a babysitter when she has to go food shopping.
Yeah.
Johnny's coming along. So, kids learn at a very young age. They begin to learn at a very young age what is accepted, what the rules are in different places. That's somewhat difficult for kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult, but it's not impossible. So let me ask another thing. What type of what's the toolbox you pull out when you've got a particularly difficult situation going on? Like, oh boy. And it must happen every once in a while where this is not going to be an easy breezy. There's something going on here.
What toolbox?
The framework, the in the back of your head where you're like, oh gosh, like there's a difference between a kid that says I'm bored, right, and then says I'm bored, and then that's it, they're done. That you're like, you give it a few minutes and they're not going anywhere. It's sort of like a game of wills, and they won.
There's really no difference in how I am in the core of what I do. If kids are upset, angry, throwing things, bored, not interested, screaming, crying, temper tantrum, I'm really consistent in how I am and what I do. I might improvise because I'm so skilled, I guess, in what I do. I feel comfortable. I don't need like a manual. I could shift things around. I could be a little bit more, you know, if I need to have the parent come in, or if I need to be a little bit more directive, I would do that. But it's very intuitional based. If I feel it, I'll go with it because I trust myself on that level. So I'm not really phased by a lot of things. Now, I might have red flags that pop up that I might, okay, he might need, let's say, an evaluation for OT, or maybe he's on the spectrum, or like maybe he has pandas and he's not, like I would ask questions based on what I see and how I feel. I can convey back to the parents, but for the most part, I'm really consistent in how I am.
Yeah.
I'm very child centered approach. That's kind of what I do. I'm very principled, like
Right.
how I am. How is And sometimes, like, a kid would go around the room for 45 minutes, and you could just imagine, like, you come into a playroom, and the kid is touching one toy after another and says, "What's this? What's that? What's this?" for 45 minutes. Now, a normal human being would probably have no more hair left after that session. For me, I'm like the same thing. I give the same response. I said, "Johnny, in here, you can decide what it is. You can choose what that's gonna be. And here, you it could be anything you want." And for 45 minutes, I'm the same. But after that, he realized, okay, the next session came in. He's like, okay, so this is a spaceship. Okay, so you decided that's going to be a spaceship. Yeah, there it goes. So it allows them to feel, to be them who they are, I guess, like to really accept them for who they are. So a kid could really, nothing really would faze me.
So you play for a living,
I do. I do play
right?
for it. Yes.
That's what you do. You play
I do.
because you just, they come in and you take it from there. You're playing.
Yeah.
Everything's not necessarily fun, because a game is not necessarily, oh, let's
And
play a
I,
fun
I
game.
sometimes
Some
tell
games are fun.
no, but good point you bring up, because a lot of times I tell parents when I first meet them, don't think coming here they're going to like coming here. It's not just because I have a playroom doesn't mean it's going to be fun. Because if you're working on something, you're not in the mood, or you're just dealing with something, you're not going to want to be here. You're not going to want to deal with whatever you're dealing with. So I'd let parents know it's not going to always be fun. And not only
Right.
that, it's something like sometimes it's a good indicator that they're actually working on something, because they don't want to be here, or they're upset, or whatever, So they're working through it.
Boy, it must be, kind of, not the word draining, but, I mean, heartfelt when some of these kids come in so young with some fairly devastating things going on.
It's hard in a way where I empathize, but on the same token, I'm very not encouraging, but I could sense they can get through it. Like I'm optimistic, and what they can do, what they can go through, what they can come out of.
They're resilient.
Resilient, yeah.
And the point is that, well, if you look at everything like, okay, this is a hill that we're going to climb up, but, we're going to do this. And we'll
Right.
do this together if we have to. Um, when you get to the top of the hill, sometimes the the view is breathtaking with these kids, with anybody,
Yeah.
with anybody. It's that challenge when a child realizes, for example, how many kids are afraid of lots of things,
Yeah.
right? And when they realize, for example, the bicycle thing, right? The bicycle thing. So
Yeah.
they get on the bicycle. Don't let me go. Don't let me go. Please don't. No, I'm afraid. I don't want to go. And then they're like, they're doing it themselves. The expression on their faces
Yeah.
that they've just accomplished this. And I could, realizing that they're doing it, that they're able, what happens when they, lean this way and that way. I mean,
Hmm.
it's just a whole new world. And kids are doing this every day, every minute. That's what's so exhausting for them. That's what can make them anxious, is that everything is like that for them. We expect, oh, I've never done this, so expect the unexpected. Kid doesn't even get that concept. It's everything is unexpected. I don't want to do this. Why? Because can you just leave me alone in my house? Give me a toy. One toy, I'm happy. I'm afraid to go. I don't want to go anywhere because they're afraid of everything. And any child that is afraid, I mean, it's not so unusual for a child to be afraid of everything, I would suspect, all by themselves. Just to decide one day, it's just too much for me. I can't do this. I can imagine you've seen lots of different um, what is it? Phases, trends, the rabbit hole a child gets themselves into at all the different phases of their life. I can only imagine how, um, like I said, that I don't know how you do it. It would break my heart. My empathy meter would be off. It would just like at one day it would just go like this, boom, and it would break out of the box, and that would be into that. Because I really do feel and sometimes cannot communicate what I feel. So imagine children feeling all these things and they have no words for them. on a moment by moment basis. I was afraid of school. I was afraid to go to school because I didn't want to leave home. And then when I got to school, I I had a few bad things happen. I remember using a stapler and stapling my finger, and a little kid's little teeny little pinky. The staple went right through my finger. I never wanted to go back to school after that. Can you imagine? That simple.
Yeah.
That simple. So, you've got lots of things going on. From that point on, I had a headache, a stomach ache. I mean, I was dizzy. Oh no. Um, Children, they're just so like you said, so if you got a parent who calls you 2 seconds after something's happened, can't wait for it to be can't wait for the child to move on from that. And sometimes sometimes it's the parents that need the therapy, not the kids. Like, the kid comes and you think to yourself, this child is absolutely normal. We're just going to have good times together. But, do you go back to the parent and say, I think you could use a little help?
On the contrary, something. I had a girl. I think she was like 5 or 6. Maybe 5, and she would get notes home from school how she's misbehaving, time and time, week after week. I told the parent, I says, listen, I don't know what's going on, but she's perfectly fine. I think she's perfectly fine. Like, I don't usually tell parents this, but you might need to check a different school out. Like, I would take that. I don't just tell that to parents, but like, everything is indicated. Like, she's a perfectly fine 5-year-old. Something with the teacher or the school is just not working out. Like, you should find something else. They listened to me and they found a different school. And I remember distinctively. The girl came in to thank me. She gave me like a Snickers bar, like, as a token of appreciation.
Yeah, it as I said, there's so much going on and they don't necessarily communicate. So
Yeah,
it's sort of like this problem that you've got to figure out without words. They're play acting.
yeah,
And even though you might not like what they're play acting, they may be play acting and being totally normal. As you said, it was like, well, how she's play acting is normal. Let's take a look at the stimulus that's making her do this, because it's pretty normal. I mean, I would act a lot. Um, but oddly enough, when I would play act, but I always wanted to be the director. So when I would do make believe, I would be telling everybody else what to do.
mhm,
I didn't want to act at all. I
mhm,
wanted to tell them what to do in this, in our little. So you're going to be the mother, and this is what I want you to say. No, no, don't say it that way.
yep,
And I would say that, now looking back, I would say there's nothing really wrong with that, other than um, obviously I have control issues. I mean, why do I have control issues? Because obviously I feel like I'm not in control, so I'm trying to control my play act time. So, and I didn't like to play games with rules. I wanted to make the rules
mhm,
up myself. So
yeah,
my control issues went way back. And had my parents, um, had you been around, maybe you would have said to my folks, she has control issues. What's going on? Like, how do you deal with that? And I'm sure there are a lot of kids with control issues.
you really have to get the sense of what happens at the family, what happens at home. How are you conveying the message? Why does she feel like she needs to have that for? You know, is there too much anxiety? Is the parents nervous? Helicopter parenting? You know,
I um I mean, I could I can psychoanalyze myself into that situation, because at the time I think there were problems at home. My father had lost a job, and I think there were problems. And they tried to hide them from me, but it was quite clear that stuff was out of control. They were trying to control it. So was I.
Yeah.
And it happened at, I would say, 6 years, 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's pretty critical. I would say, these things that happen to younger kids, I'm not trying to say that there's a critical point. There is some specific critical point. But with a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid, they're beginning really to connect with that identity, connect with who they are. Like a little kid just play acts and never necessarily understands, I can be this today and that tomorrow, and this is how I
Mm-hmm.
speak. Every day can be different, and
Yeah.
they're not necessarily holding on to anything. They're checking stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
But as you get a little older, you're beginning to hold on to that, saying, well, this worked, so I'm going to do this over and over and over again because it works.
Yeah.
So, you've got little kids that, again, the temper tantrum. You've got a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old that has a temper tantrum. It's quite a lot different than an 8-year-old that's having a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
And how would you work that out with the kid? That the difference between the 5-year-old with the temper tantrum and the 8-year-old.
If it's happening like in the session.
Yeah, like you're noticing the child is trying to control you, and there's a difference in age.
Sure, but I'd play the same way. I mean, I would. I'm really the same. I'm really not.
Really the same.
I'll respond the same, do the same.
So
If I
how would you work out a control issue with a kid where you see this child is trying to control the situation?
But I would allow him to control the situation. But I would reflect back. Hey, you're feeling like you need to do this. You're feeling like you need to control. Like you're feeling uncomfortable. Or maybe if I feel anxiety outside, like you're feeling a little bit nervous, not sure what to do, or you feel like I would just be like that when I am for a 5-year-old or 3-year-old. It would be no difference how I am. Their
Right.
response might be totally different. Very often, very, very seldom. Maybe I can remember once in my entire career, or maybe twice, I actually had to end session early because it was just too much. He was going, the kid was overstimulated. So I ended session early. Maybe twice in my whole career I did that. But doing it longer would make a worse of an impact.
Right.
So I had
Oh,
to end.
absolutely.
So I just ended session early.
Right.
You know?
No, I
But
mean
it's
that totally.
very random handle. But you only know that if you're able to improvise. Okay, this kid's too. It's really too much. This is it's not going to go another 20 minutes. It's better to do it now and just. It'll be more therapeutic ending it earlier than staying later. Let's just say, because it's just too much. Yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah. Right.
that's it with anybody. I mean, when you're having an argument with somebody, something that I learned with my husband, my late husband, was that in the beginning I would argue it out because I thought that was important, and then I realized, in that's the 60-40, and sometimes I've just got to let it go. It's not that important. Pick your battles type of thing,
Right. Yeah.
and you just let it go. And you have to learn that in life to let it go. And in this case, when a child is just, like you said, overstimulated, you've got to let it go. It hurts the heck because you just want to, you might hold the child and say, okay, sweetheart, shift gears. And if in your case, it's like end the session, shift gears completely,
Right.
because this is becoming too much, all encompassing. The
Right.
poor kid's head's going to explode. You can't do that because
Right.
they don't know
Mm-hmm.
what they don't know, and they're wallowing in this, which they think is going to last forever. Because
Right.
5 minutes is forever for a child,
Yeah.
and you've got to end it. No, and as I said, even in the case of an adult, because you reach that point where this is going to hurt somebody at some point. It's not going
Yeah.
to help anybody. But
Yeah.
knowing that um, is a talent. Knowing that is a talent, right? So other things that happen with kids in your sessions that that make you how do I say it? Not necessarily bring out the best in you, but situations where you've worked with a kid and it's just a slam dunk. It's like it's a great session. You're really getting somewhere. The kid knows it and you know it, and it's a beautiful thing. Have there been, that breakthrough? Have you had situations where it's been maybe a rough road and they've, climbed that mountain? What's that like? Do you have a situation where you could maybe tell a story or?
So I was at a place to do I was actually doing play therapy training at one of the biggest places in Texas. And in this training, they put you in a room with a kid. There's a two-way mirror. Everybody's watching you, and you're doing a session. Um, so I was doing a session with a 5-year-old, and he's communicating, he's talking, he's verbalizing, he's talking about his family, he's talking like he was. I didn't know anything about him, but he was playing. It seemed going very well as far as it was regular. I wasn't, it was going well. But in the background, I heard a lot of commotion going on behind the window to the mirror. I didn't pay attention. I was just doing what I do best. Then when the session was over, I'm like, what was going on? Like, what's the whole commotion behind the window? So everybody was like coming in to talk to me. Says, "What'd you do?" I said, "You saw what I did. I was just doing what I do best." And they said, like, this kid hasn't talked for like a year and a half, and now he's talking and communicating and talking with you. Like, it was a humbling experience, but I was just being me. There's no, there was no like secret, prescription I was pulling out. So that was a very humbling experience.
that 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 is kind of yeah. And what wow, that's what does the parent do at that point? Like it's almost like you've it's not so much that you have that you did anything, that the child literally crossed the line.
Hmm.
Something happened in that child's head where suddenly they're safe.
Yeah, but if I could train the parents also to be like that, or to be like me, or to be present, or to be real, or understand, then the kid might be more receptive to expressing himself, becoming better, listening better.
The point is you've got to, when you've got kids, you've got to be in their face at some point. Obviously, you want to teach your child responsibility. Obviously, you want to, give them an environment where they can grow up safely. But in many cases, um, parents lose their patience with kids, especially when they've got problems. So,
And I tell parents, if you're at a time at a place and you can't deal with it, or you need space, tell your kid, I need 5, 10 minutes. I'm going to my bedroom to relax, and take yourself time for yourself.
right?
Give yourself a time to breathe.
I think there are many things that you could. I mean, what are other things that you tell parents? Because, like I said, in many cases, it's the kid's normal. The parent is losing it, and
So,
listen, it's not easy raising kids.
yeah, it's not. Sometimes if the parents are overwhelmed, I tell them to take a break. They want to get better relationship with their kids, put down the phone a little bit longer. You know,
Have you
it's not,
had
it's not,
situations
it's
where
not
you
the it's not the quantity that matters. It's the quality. So I know parents are busy. A lot of both parents have to work. I get it. It's very challenging out there, 100%. But don't focus on quantity, focus on the quality. So if you have 15 minutes to be with your kid, to play, or to be without a phone, or to take him to a bath, or take him for a walk, or play in the park, that's quality. Don't look at it as I need to do every single day for an hour. Do 15 minutes. Get to 10 minutes.
What about parents that like to schedule their kids for all these play dates? So the kids got this wild schedule.
Personally, I'm not a big fan of overscheduling the kids. It's my 2 cents. I think there has to be time for being bored.
I mean, I when I was a kid, I had piano lessons, and that was it. I hated piano. It made me very nervous. And I also had recitals, made me more nervous. But sometimes some parents are overscheduling their kids to find out what it is that they want to do in life. And some parents underschedule their kids because, they may not have the resources. I mean,
Yeah,
it was piano lessons.
yeah.
That's it. So what types of what types of situations can you see solutions for kids? Somewhere in between the overscheduled and the underscheduled. How you could tell parents to like build a child's character or develop a child's character or even identify a child's character.
Obviously, the saying goes, everything in moderation. But what I would probably want to understand from the parent, why do you feel the need to do his schedule from 3 to 8 o'clock at night? Are you not interested in being with your kid? Are you just not available? You work. You just you need to do some. You need to do other things. So you need to put him somewhere or her somewhere. Um, Obviously,
Well, the neighborhood, all the kids have things to do. The mother will say, every child is doing all these things. I cannot let my kid,
but
they're going,
then that's a personal thing with the parent, and then you feel
yeah.
jealous, stressful, like you have to live up to somebody. Like, what does your kid need? What does your kid need to if your kid is okay with having one thing or going to a basketball league or playing an instrument, then try one. Why have to do it? How does it impact your whole life and his life or the family's life as well? You know,
A lot of, there's soccer practice, and then there's, there's
yeah.
play dates. I honestly, I don't remember doing a lot when I was a kid. I
You
had a
just
few
went, you just,
friends,
you
and
just went out and played, no?
we went out and played. It's like,
Yeah.
Ma, can I go over Kathy's house? Yeah. How you gonna get there? Oh, can you drive me? Okay. What time are you coming back? Oh, I don't know, but ask Kathy's dad if he could take. It was that simple. And my mom knew Kathy's mom and dad, and that was the end of that.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
end of that. I didn't have lots of things going on, but I mean, if I couldn't play with Kathy or Randy or anybody, I was bored. And I would say, I'm bored. It's nothing to do. I'm not, well, and my mother would be like, okay, come with me. And I mean, that's when I would garden with my mother and things like
Hmm.
that. So it wasn't, it wasn't so planned and so
Structure.
directed by my mother.
Yeah.
But parents these days need to feel like they're scheduling these things.
It's a lot.
So, you know,
It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of, you know,
I guess
society.
there's some amount of guilt, and how do you deal with that with the guilty parent that feels like
Tell them to get their own therapist.
yeah, right.
You know,
It's sort of like the kid's life is a free for all, and you've really
Mm.
got to be ready for that free for all. It's like, today it's going to be clown outfits. And after you think that they want to be a clown, they're like an astronaut. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, when did that happen? It just happens.
Yeah.
And you've got like, okay, that's why I guess we don't spend so much money on the clown outfit, because tomorrow, and yeah, So do you do any adult therapy with with parents and play?
No.
Don't you think that would be a good thing?
Yeah, but not my thing.
But you do, I mean, not that we're going to change the subject and start talking about that, but you do a lot of work, entrepreneurial work,
Yeah, business wise,
right? And
Yeah.
it sort of is along those lines. So you take those skills that you have with kids, and you just like, okay, we're dealing with adult children now.
In some way, yeah.
As I said, I really, women will say, oh, men are, boys will be boys. Women will say that men never grow up, right? They're always boys. That's what women will say. And then the other thing that men will say is that, women are too serious. We're planning everything, and it is sort of the different way that men and women look at things. But I don't think we ever totally grow up. I think we have experiences that we get stuck in. So, but for example, kids in food, right? Kids in food. They've never tried it. And sometimes you've got kids that will only eat macaroni and cheese. No matter what you do, it's macaroni and cheese. So, you say to you say to Kathy's mom, oh, Joy's coming over today and she only eats macaroni and cheese. But you've got adults that do that too. Now, is the adult teaching the kid how to eat only one type of food? Odds are.
Yeah.
Have you experienced the food therapy?
No.
Like, no, there's no. When I say the food therapy, it's like what kids will eat, what kids won't eat, and when they're eating it and all that type of stuff. Sorry, we're back again. That's okay. Have you experienced, like, has there been food in your therapy with any kid?
No.
Never?
No.
Because as I said, I have I've dealt with children that will only eat like it's got to be macaroni and cheese 3 times a day until they're out of that. And you're thinking, what in the world is going on in that household? But I'm the child that ate everything. So I'm the opposite child. Put it in front of me, I'm eating it. I'll tell you if I don't like it. And odds are I like it. I ate clams as a kid. Like, give her a clam, she'll spit that out. Ooh, can I have another? And my mother's like, that's not what I wanted to happen here. So I'll eat anything, literally anything. And to this day, I'll eat anything. So David, how can people find you? And where are you located? How can people find you? Do you work nationally?
I do work with parenting, like coaching, like I could do on Zoom, stuff like that, yeah. My office is in Brooklyn. They can go on my website, it's www.center, the number 4, playtherapy.com. They can email me, they can go online, they can check. If they have a question, they can call me. I don't charge for phone calls.
And if an adult wants to come play with you, I'm not kidding.
What's that? Not my thing.
As I said, I think that we all need a moment to play. We all need a moment to play. What do you I'm going to leave the audience, but we're going to leave the audience soon, but I want you to leave the audience with your favorite adult game. Things you do that you love to do when you need to like let it out.
I play piano. I play the violin. I play baseball. I play hockey. I'm also a chef, so I like to cook.
That's my therapy, cooking.
So
My
cooking
therapy.
and music is my therapy.
Have you ever made matzah? I
No,
have to ask you this.
no.
I made matzah the first time over the holiday, and it said 15 minutes. I was like, oh, I could do this, 15 minutes. I must not have added the right amount of water. I'm not sure. But let me tell you, this matzah would not lay down. I'm rolling and and I'm like, oh my God, no wonder they had to let go of the slaves after 6 years. If they said we're making matzah, the slave after 6 years, like, I'm not making any more matzah. I'm done. Let me go. Free my people. I'm not making matzah. That stuff was tough. 15 minutes easy to make a lump out of it, but rolling?
Yeah.
I'm done with that. I thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It was a
And
pleasure.
that's a wrap.
Okay. All the best.